Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Emily Johnson walked slowly across the spacious living room of her mother-in-law, Margaret Wilson's, home. The gray afternoon light filtering through the large windows seemed to accentuate the emptiness and heavy silence of the house. Everything was strangely still, as if the house itself were holding its breath. She was alone, and the loneliness felt heavier than ever. Margaret had just died, and Emily was left with a confused mix of feelings. She remembered the arguments, the heavy silences, the moments when she felt misunderstood or judged. But she also remembered rare moments when Margaret's kindness had broken through the shell of a woman she had long believed to be cold and distant. These memories were fragile, almost unreal, and yet strangely precious in this moment of loss. In the middle of the living room, on the mahogany table, lay a carefully placed envelope addressed to Emily. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The letter inside wasn't long, but every word seemed laden with weight and meaning. Margaret had chosen her sentences carefully, revealing thoughts, regrets, secrets, and a message Emily never imagined she would receive. As she read, Emily felt her heart clench and her eyes well up. The words revealed a side of Margaret she had never known, a woman capable of deep tenderness, silent sacrifice, and a love she had never expressed openly. Emily suddenly understood that her entire perception of her mother-in-law was incomplete, perhaps even false. This letter wasn't just a farewell. It was an invitation to understand, forgive, and rebuild the family bonds Emily thought were irreparable. She realized that certain secrets, certain emotions, and certain gestures of love had been hidden until that very moment, waiting for the exact moment to be revealed. And as she gently closed the envelope, a new certainty dawned on her. Her life had changed dramatically. Margaret's death marked not just the end, but the beginning of a journey toward truth, reconciliation, and the rediscovery of family. Emily felt, for the first time in a long time, that she was no longer alone in this emptiness. Margaret's letter had become a light in the darkness of her loneliness. Emily Johnson stood motionless in the living room for a long time after closing Margaret's letter. The warmth of the fading sun brought no comfort, everything seemed icy. She sank onto the old sofa, her trembling hands still clutching the envelope. Memories began to surface, imbued with a sweet, painful bitterness. She remembered the first day she'd met Margaret. Emily was only 22, still full of naivete and dreams. Margaret, on the other hand, was imposing in her posture and strict in her words. Every meeting with her seemed a test, every remark, a judgment. Emily remembered the fear she'd felt of never measuring up. Family meals were filled with silent tension, hushed raised voices, and reproachful looks. Yet through this veil of harshness, there had been moments of light. Emily remembered the time she'd been in a minor car accident and Margaret had spent the night at her bedside, watching over her with silent but tangible concern. Or the time, at Christmas, when Margaret had given her an old family necklace, a symbol of a bond Emily had never fully understood at the time. These memories, buried beneath resentment and misunderstanding, suddenly took on a new dimension. The letter she now held seemed to cast a different light on those memories. Margaret's words revealed a woman who had always wanted to protect her family, who had hidden her emotions behind rigid facades, and who had waited for the precise moment to confide her truths. Emily felt a strange mixture of guilt and gratitude wash over her. She had judged too quickly, she had interpreted silences and reproaches as indifference, when they were fear, pride, and misspoken love. She stood up and walked to the fireplace. The family photos were there, frozen in time. Margaret smiled in each one, but Emily saw something deeper now, the complexity of a woman capable of loving while imposing her boundaries. Emily ran her fingers over the frame of her own wedding photo, remembering the silent tensions, the misinterpreted advice, and the rebukes she had received. Everything suddenly seemed clearer. Time passed without her realizing it. Every memory, every moment of resentment or tenderness, took on new meaning. Emily understood that Margaret's letter was not just a message, but a guide to learning to look at family again with different eyes. The ghosts of the past were no longer there to haunt her, but to show her the path to understanding and forgiveness. That evening, Emily sat at the living room table, wrapped in a blanket, and reread the letter. She felt that something had just begun, an emotional and familial adventure whose scope she did not yet know. But for the first time in a long time, she felt a new warmth, that of reconciliation and the discovery of a long-hidden truth. The next morning, Emily woke with a mixture of apprehension and curiosity. Margaret's letter continued to resonate in her mind, and something inside her told her it was only the beginning of a larger revelation. She decided to dig deeper into the house, hoping to find more traces of the woman she had known, and perhaps uncover even deeper truths. In Margaret's office, room Emily had never really explored, she came across an old leather binder, dusty and half-hidden under a pile of documents. Her trembling fingers lifted the binder. Inside, she discovered a carefully kept diary, with pages filled with fine, neat handwriting. Heart pounding, she opened the first page. The words she read took her breath away. Margaret recounted intimate moments of her life, doubts, regrets, difficult choices. She spoke of lost friendships, conflicts she had kept secret, but above all of a deep, silent love she had never been able to fully express. Emily understood then that the strict and cold woman she had often judged actually had a complex and emotional inner life, full of hidden passions and sacrifices. As the pages turned, Emily discovered details about Margaret's early life, her thwarted ambitions, and family events Emily had never known. Each line revealed a side of Margaret that no one in the family knew. There were passages where Margaret spoke of her fears, her mistakes, and even her moments of doubt about how she was managing her own family. These confessions gave her a fragile, human dimension that Emily had never imagined. Then Emily came across a page that particularly shook her. Margaret recounted how she had hidden a family secret to protect someone she loved deeply. A secret that, if revealed too soon, could have broken the family apart. Emily felt her breath catch. Everything she had perceived as rigidity or coldness now took on a completely different meaning. Margaret had never been indifferent, she had always acted out of caution and love, even if it meant keeping her distance or imposing strict rules. Sitting on the floor of the study, Emily reread several passages from the diary. She understood that every reproach, every cold remark, every heavy silence had, in reality, been Margaret's way of protecting her family from invisible wounds. And now, thanks to this letter and this diary, Emily saw her mother-in-law in a completely new light. This mixture of strength and vulnerability, of hidden love and caution, completely transformed her outlook on the past years. For the first time, Emily felt not only gratitude, but also a deep desire to understand the whole woman. She stood up, journal clutched to her, and felt a new determination. She must explore every corner of Margaret's life to uncover all the secrets and hidden messages. Every word, every memory, every confession would help her reconstruct a complete picture of the woman she had loved, or at least, thought she knew. And as the afternoon sun dimly lit the room, Emily knew her quest was only just beginning. Margaret's past was a labyrinth of mysteries and emotions, and each discovery would bring her one step closer to the truth about her stepmother, and herself. A few days after discovering Margaret's journal, Emily felt it was time to contact her stepmother's children, David and Lisa Wilson. She hesitated for a long time before calling, dreading confrontations and old reproaches. Finally, she dialed the number of David, the eldest brother, whose deep, distant voice reminded her of the many silences and tensions she had experienced at family gatherings. "Emily," David said, his voice measured. "I'm guessing you're calling because of Mom?" Emily felt her heart clench. "Yes. I found something Mom left me. A letter, and a journal. I thought you should know." After a long silence, David agreed to meet her, and they agreed to meet with Lisa at the city's central cafe. When the day came, Emily arrived nervous, her journal carefully tucked into her bag. David and Lisa were already there, visibly tense, each carrying the weight of accumulated memories and grudges. The first few minutes were awkward. The shifty glances and heavy silences spoke of unhealed wounds. But Emily, with a caution born of her recent discoveries, spoke. "I read Mom's letter, and her diary. I think she wanted us to understand some things." Lisa frowned, her voice trembling. Understand what, Emily? After all this time. I don't even know if I want to understand. David, for his part, remained silent, but Emily felt his fists clench around the coffee mug he was holding. She decided to begin reading a few choice excerpts from the diary, passages where Margaret expressed her quiet love for each of them, her regrets over past arguments, and the reasons why she had acted so harshly at times. Little by little, the emotional walls began to crumble. Lisa let out a silent sob, while David closed his eyes and shook his head, as if to banish years of resentment. I never imagined Mom felt all this, he finally whispered. Emily felt a mixture of relief and sadness. The grudges built up over the years weren't easy to dissolve, but for the first time, she saw the possibility of sincere dialogue. The secrets and emotions Margaret had revealed had opened a door to mutual understanding. As the afternoon progressed, they spoke at length, confronting their past wounds while discovering Margaret's complexity. Each anecdote from the journal became a bridge between them, a way to rebuild connections each thought lost forever. Emily understood that the letter and the journal were not just material legacies, but guides for rebuilding a fractured family. When the meeting ended, an unexpected calm descended. The grudges were still there, but a new mutual respect was beginning to emerge. Emily felt that Margaret had managed, even after her death, to unite her family in a way no one would have thought possible. She left the cafe feeling like she had taken the first step towards something greater, reconciliation and family truth. After meeting David and Lisa, Emily felt she must continue exploring Margaret's past. The letter and diary had opened a window into her stepmother's soul, but Emily felt there were still hidden truths, family secrets that no one had dared to reveal. One afternoon, while rummaging through an old wooden chest in the attic, Emily found a thick, yellowed envelope with Margaret's name handwritten across it. Her heart pounded as she opened it. Inside, several documents recounted a long-forgotten event. Margaret had made difficult decisions to protect a family member from a scandal that could have destroyed their reputation and unity. Emily read carefully. It concerned an incident that had occurred years earlier, involving a serious mistake made by a close cousin, which Margaret had managed to cover up without informing the rest of the family. Her intention wasn't to lie, but to protect the honor and safety of those she loved. Every word in the documents revealed a woman aware of the risks, but ready to take on the heavy responsibility of preserving the family. The mixture of caution and courage that emanated from the writings impressed Emily. She realized that the tensions and conflicts she had experienced with Margaret were not only due to her mother-in-law's rigidity or pride, but also to the complexity of the situations she had to manage in secret. Emily felt a deep admiration, mixed with a sense of guilt for all the times she had judged Margaret without knowing the circumstances. Soon after, Emily decided to share this discovery with David and Lisa. Reading these documents caused an intense emotional shock. David, usually so reserved, let out silent tears, while Lisa remained frozen, unable to speak for several minutes. I didn't know, Lisa finally whispered. Everything we thought we knew was only part of the story. Emily felt that something new had been born between them. The secrets they had discovered, far from dividing them, were beginning to create bonds of understanding and respect. They realized together that Margaret had always acted out of love and prudence, even if it meant keeping difficult truths from them. At the end of the day, Emily returned to the attic and gazed at the dusty shelves filled with mementos. She realized that family secrets weren't necessarily wounds, but trials through which love and loyalty were revealed. Margaret had left behind a legacy far deeper than she had imagined, a guide to learning to look at her family with compassion, understanding, and courage. That evening, Emily reread the documents once more, her thoughts turning to the future. Each discovery strengthened her determination to continue this quest for truth and to rebuild family ties, one fragment at a time. She knew now that the letter and the journal were only the beginning of a path that would lead her and her family to a reconciliation and understanding they never thought possible. In the days that followed, Emily found herself alone with her thoughts, enveloped by the eerie quiet of the empty house. The letter, the diary, and the secrets she had discovered continued to resonate in her mind, but now that she knew the truth about Margaret, a new burden had settled in, the weight of silence and all those years of misunderstanding. She sat for long periods in the living room, watching the sunlight filter through the curtains, casting a soft light on the furniture. Every corner of the house seemed to hold a memory of Margaret, from family photos to personal belongings, everything told a story Emily had ignored for too long. She thought back to the reproaches, the silences, the tensions, and the conflicts that had marked her years with her mother-in-law. Everything now took on a new meaning, but with this understanding came a mixture of sadness, suppressed anger, and regret. Emily understood that this weight of silence was not only Margaret's, but hers as well. She had spent years judging, protecting herself, and interpreting every word and gesture through her own fear and resentment. The unspoken secrets and emotions had shaped their relationship in complex and painful ways. And now, confronted with the truth, she had to face all those accumulated emotions. In an attempt to free herself, Emily began to write. She recorded her thoughts, her memories, her regrets, and her hopes, trying to put into words what had remained silent for too long. Each sentence was a step toward understanding, each word a way to get closer to Margaret and, paradoxically, closer to herself. One afternoon, as she reread the excerpts from Margaret's diary, Emily felt a wave of anger mixed with sadness wash over her. "Why so many secrets?" she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. But this anger quickly transformed into a silent form of gratitude. Margaret had done this to protect her family, not to hurt anyone. Emily understood that silence had been a weapon and a shield, and that now it was up to her to transform that silence into understanding and reconciliation. As the days passed, Emily felt stronger, but also more vulnerable. She understood that the letter and the diary were not just revelations about Margaret, but mirrors reflecting her own choices, her regrets, and her capacity to forgive. Each discovery prompted her to reflect on her life, her relationships, and how she wanted to move forward. That evening, sitting by the fireplace, Emily took a deep breath. The loneliness that had initially suffocated her was beginning to transform into a space for reflection and rebirth. She knew now that the road to reconciliation would be long and difficult, but that each step would bring her closer to an essential truth: family, despite its mistakes and secrets, remained an unbreakable bond. And as she closed her eyes for the first time in days, Emily felt a strange inner peace. Margaret's letter and secrets had opened the door to a profound transformation, and she knew she was ready to walk that path, even if the weight of silence would continue to accompany her for a while longer. A few days later, Emily received an unexpected call. A warm, slightly deep voice introduced itself. "Hello, I'm Jack Carter. Margaret has told me about you before. Well, you were often mentioned in her memories." Emily felt her heart sink. Jack Carter, an old friend of Margaret's, whom she had never met, offered to talk to her about her mother-in-law. After a moment's hesitation, Emily agreed to meet him in a small cafe in the city center, where the morning lights softly illuminated the wooden tables. Jack was a man in his 50s, with slightly graying hair and piercing blue eyes. He exuded a calm authority and immediate sincerity. Emily showed him the journal and the letter, explaining how these documents had changed his perception of Margaret. Jack nodded with a smile that was both sad and understanding. "Margaret," he began slowly, "she was a strong woman, very strong. But she hid an immense fragility. Few people truly understood her. She was afraid of disappointing, afraid of showing her vulnerability, but her heart was always in the right place." Emily felt Jack's words resonate deeply. Each anecdote he shared illuminated a side of Margaret she had never perceived. He spoke of the sacrifices Margaret had made for her family, the mistakes she had hidden, and the tender moments she expressed only with those she loved deeply. Then Jack confided a story Margaret had told him years before, how she had helped a young neighbor overcome personal difficulties, without ever seeking recognition or gratitude. "That was her way of loving," Jack said. "Understated, quiet, but always there." Emily felt an intense emotion wash over her. The woman she had sometimes considered cold and strict was now revealed in all her complexity, a woman capable of courage, sacrifice, and a quiet but powerful love. Emily understood that all the past tensions, all the misunderstandings, were illuminated in this new light. Meeting Jack changed something in her. She realized that to truly understand Margaret, she had to embrace her complexity, welcome the contradictions, and learn to see the generosity behind the rigor. Every word from Jack was like a missing piece of a puzzle Emily had spent years trying to piece together. As Emily left the cafe, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she really knew Margaret, not just the strict and distant mother-in-law she had thought she was. She knew that this meeting was just one step, but an essential one in rebuilding her family and understanding the difficult choices Margaret had made. That evening, Emily reread the journal with a new perspective. Margaret's words, illuminated by Jack's confidences, took on a deeper meaning. The woman she had deemed too harsh was in reality a person of exceptional depth and humanity, and Emily now knew she must continue on her path to uncover all the hidden truths and pass on to her family what she had just learned. After meeting Jack, Emily felt it was time to act. The secrets and revelations she had uncovered about Margaret had opened a door, and now it was time to rebuild what years of silence and misunderstanding had weakened: family ties. She contacted David and Lisa, suggesting they meet again, this time in the old family home, the place where so many memories, both good and bad, had been made. The prospect of returning to that house aroused a slight apprehension, but Emily was determined. She knew that the walls that had witnessed conflict and resentment could also become witnesses to reconciliation and new understanding. When David and Lisa arrived, tensions were palpable. Each still carried the traces of past grudges. Emily took a deep breath and began to share the stories about Margaret that Jack had told her, as well as her own reflections on the journal and letters. She didn't want to impose an interpretation, but rather invite everyone to see Margaret through her choices, her sacrifices, and her quiet love. At first, David remained silent, almost suspicious. Lisa, for her part, let a few words of emotion escape her, but remained guarded. Yet, as Emily read passages from the journal and recounted anecdotes, buried memories resurfaced, this time from a different perspective. Each word seemed to break down an invisible barrier. "I never imagined she loved us so much," even in her silences, Lisa whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. David nodded, his jaw clenched. "Everything I thought was indifference, was caution and love in her own way." The conversation continued for a long time, and little by little, the grudges and misunderstandings began to dissolve. Emily noticed a subtle change in the demeanor of her brothers-in-law and sisters-in-law: shoulders relaxed, looks became softer, and words more sincere. The walls of the house seemed to breathe with them, welcoming this attempt at reconciliation. At the end of the day, they shared an impromptu meal in the kitchen, laughing over forgotten memories, recalling fond stories of Margaret, and speaking openly about their emotions. For the first time in years, the family found a fragile but real harmony. Emily knew the journey was not yet complete, but for the first time, she felt that a solid bridge had been built between them. Margaret, through her secrets and her letters, had succeeded in transforming the painful past into a present where love and understanding could finally be manifested. Before leaving the house that evening, Emily stood in front of the fireplace, gazing at the family photos. A feeling of gratitude and peace washed over her. She understood that rebuilding relationships would never be perfect, but that by accepting Margaret's truths and sharing these discoveries with those close to her, she had just laid the foundation for a united and stronger family. After bringing David and Lisa together, Emily felt another challenge awaited her: she had to consider her own future. The revelations about Margaret, her secrets, and her quiet love had shaken her view of family, but they also showed her a path for her own life. Each discovery revealed not only who her stepmother was, but also who she wanted to become. Sitting in Margaret's office, Emily examined the items left behind: photos, letters, and mementos that told the story of a life full of difficult but courageous decisions. She realized she had spent too much time living up to others' expectations, fearing judgment, and conforming to what she believed was right to please those around her. Now it was time to make her own decisions. She began by reflecting on her personal relationships. Past conflicts with Margaret's family had affected her deeply, but now she saw the possibility of building sincere and lasting bonds. She decided to no longer let unspoken words and misunderstandings rule her life. Every word Margaret wrote, every secret revealed, was a lesson in the courage to speak the truth, forgiveness, and true love. Then Emily thought about her career and personal ambitions. She had often hesitated to make important decisions, fearing failure or the judgment of others. But Margaret's examples showed her that life was worth living to the fullest, even if it meant making difficult choices. She made the decision to follow her own path, to take risks, and to stand by her decisions with confidence and determination. One evening, as she reread Margaret's letter one last time, Emily felt a new clarity. The words that once seemed weighty and mysterious now resonated like a guide to the future. Margaret had given her more than a family legacy. She had given her the courage to be herself, to love fully, and to build her life with integrity. Emily also decided to open a deeper dialogue with David and Lisa. She wanted each member of the family to find their own path, illuminated by the truth and love Margaret had sown. She knew that challenges would still come, but she felt ready to face them, strengthened by the lesson her mother-in-law had taught her. Late that evening, Emily sat by the window, watching the stars appear in the dark sky. A sense of peace and purpose washed over her. Margaret's death had marked the end of an era, but it had also ushered in a new one, an era of truth, forgiveness, and freedom. Emily now knew that the future was no longer dictated by fear or unspoken words, but by the courage to choose and build the life she truly wanted. A few days after making her decisions for the future, Emily decided to tackle what remained to be discovered in Margaret's house, her legacy. Not only material, but also symbolic, a legacy laden with meaning and memories. She began by rummaging through Margaret's office, where old filing cabinets and chests lay filled with papers and memorabilia. Among them, she found several letters, old photographs, and financial documents. Each of these objects told a story and revealed the depth of Margaret's foresight. Emily discovered savings carefully set aside to help the family in times of need, letters addressed to each member explaining why certain choices had been made, and symbolic objects representing important moments in family life. There were photos of weddings, birthdays, and even secret trips that Margaret had arranged for everyone to have a happy memory, without telling the others. But what touched her most was a box containing personal letters, written by Margaret to each of her loved ones. Each letter was a mixture of advice, memories, and silent love. Emily read hers carefully, and felt a mixture of tears and gratitude wash over her. Margaret had taken care to pass on to her not only her material inheritance, but also her outlook on life, the importance of forgiveness, love, resilience, and truth. She decided to share this discovery with David and Lisa. When they saw the letters and objects, their emotions exploded. David, usually reserved, could not hold back his tears when he saw a letter in which Margaret spoke of her love for each of them and her regrets at not always having been understood. Lisa, touched by their mother's generosity and wisdom, smiled through her tears. Emily realized that Margaret's legacy extended far beyond material possessions. Every letter, every memento, every thoughtful gesture was a lesson about family, about quiet but steadfast love, and about facing life with courage and dignity. The mother-in-law Emily had sometimes misunderstood had revealed herself as an exceptional woman, whose choices had always been guided by love and protection for her family. This discovery reinforced in Emily a deep conviction: she must honor Margaret not only by caring for the family, but also by carrying her teachings into her own life. She understood that this symbolic legacy was a true guide for building a solid future, founded on truth, reconciliation, and love. That evening, Emily sat in the living room, surrounded by letters and mementos, and felt a profound sense of peace. Margaret may have left this world, but her influence on the family and on Emily's life continued to grow. The legacy was more than just an inheritance, it was a bridge between the past and the future, a light guiding Emily and her family toward brighter, more harmonious days. In the following weeks, Emily felt that everything had changed. Margaret's letter, the diary, the secrets she had discovered, Jack's revelations, and the material and symbolic inheritance had transformed her outlook on family and life. Every gesture Margaret made, every word she left behind, now resonated like a guiding light, illuminating the path for Emily and her loved ones. She spent a long afternoon rereading the letter one last time. The words that had previously seemed heavy and mysterious now took on a clear meaning. Margaret had wanted to impart to them an essential lesson about love, forgiveness, and understanding. Emily understood that her mother-in-law's death was not an end, but the beginning of a new era for her family. David and Lisa had begun to rebuild their relationship with Emily and with each other. The grudges that had accumulated over the years were slowly fading, replaced by sincere dialogue and mutual respect. Family meals, once silent and tense, were now filled with laughter and shared memories. Each anecdote from the journal or letters strengthened the bond and reminded them that family love, even when hidden, is powerful and enduring. Emily, for her part, felt transformed. She had learned that the past, with its mistakes and silences, could be a source of strength and wisdom. Margaret's difficult choices, long misunderstood, had shown her the value of courage, quiet love, and patience. Now she wanted to live life to the fullest, make decisions with confidence, and build her life and family on these lessons. As she looked at the family photos on the living room wall, Emily felt a mixture of gratitude and serenity. Margaret was no longer just her mother-in-law, she had become a guide, an invisible light that continued to accompany them, even after her death. The secrets revealed, the letters, memories, and conversations had transformed pain into understanding, misunderstandings into respect, and loneliness into connection. Closing the journal and placing the letter on the table, Emily smiled softly. The family had regained its unity, but more than that, it had regained its depth. Margaret's story had left an indelible mark, that of a woman capable of loving discreetly, protecting courageously, and inspiring those she loved, even after she was gone. And in the stillness of the evening, Emily felt the future open before her with new clarity. The letter, the diary, and Margaret's secrets had done their work. They had transformed a loss into an opportunity for rebirth, and the family, now united and aware of its legacy, was ready to move forward together, stronger, closer, and more loving than ever.